Hey y'all, welcome and welcome to another Power to Fly virtual summit event. My name is Meg Alexander. My pronouns are she, her, and hers, and I am, as always, incredibly honored and excited to get to be hosting with Power to Fly again. I hope that y'all are excited for today's event. Our November summit theme is supporting veterans, active service members, and military spouses. We are absolutely thrilled to welcome back our friends Susan Rayetano Davey and Kelly Biscobach, who are co-owners and founders of Prepare to Launch LLC, a global learning company that guides women and military spouses through challenging work-life situations and helps companies to create cultures and policies that attract, develop, retain, and advance this very important talent pool. Now, today's conversation with Susan and Kelly is entitled Connecting the Dots, a template for military spouses to tell their unique career stories. Susan and Kelly, I'm very excited to welcome y'all back to the stage today. Before we dive into questions, would you each like to introduce yourselves to the group?
Sure. Thanks, Meg, for having us. So our company was very well described by Meg. I'm Susan. I had a career in big tech, followed by a startup that helped companies set up flexible work policies so they wouldn't lose every caregiver, particularly women, when they turned 30. And then met Kelly while I was speaking at a conference, and we decided that we could together help more people, specifically caregivers, navigate the challenges of career traction, of career advancement, while being, I don't want to say burdened, but having those responsibilities at home that sometimes take us away through in periods of time from that full-time 100% work focus. So we're thrilled to be here today.
Yes. And I'm Kelly. I'm the other half of PTLU. And I actually began my career in education. And I bring more of the personal side of what's happening to you as you're navigating your career, as you're navigating this process to the PTLU marriage. And it really is a visceral experience that we all have as we are out there job seeking, as we're defining what direction our career is going in. And there's a real human element to it. We can be our own biggest roadblock. So we got together, and it's been a real match since then, helping really thousands of people transition in their career, in the different aspects of their career, so, and work and life.
And we love Power to Fly. We've done a lot of work with you all,
Yes.
so we're happy to be here today.
Yes. But we particularly love this slice of population being the military spouse. So we're thrilled anytime we get asked to speak, specifically because we've actually had the good fortune and privilege of working with military spouses for the last 7 years, like really deeply through a course that we do with an organization called Floor Block. And so we're happy to be here today and talk about our mil spouses.
Good.
No, I think this is I love to talk about military spouses because this is an area that I feel like if you're not within the military community, you don't know anybody within it, it's very easy to kind of have no idea what some of these challenges are that might be faced by military spouses seeking employment. Could you tell us a little bit about some of the challenges that are generally what you're seeing faced?
Sure. So the first is career traction. So you might have a master's degree or a deep skill set, but typically the military experience requires a lot of moving. So we have spouses that will come through our programs that move every 18 to 24 months. And as a result, it's very difficult to get any traction in one particular field or organization or role. So that's the number one.
And often will have many degrees because they're looking to do something as they're transitioning from different place to
So
place.
they'll acquire a lot of education, but they won't have the experience
Exactly.
to back it up. So that would be the biggest challenge, is that traction. And without the traction, then they often are underemployed, or they choose to be unemployed, particularly those who are deployed, not deployed, but are they call it PCSing, moved to an overseas location where they may not have work privileges, they may not speak the language. So we find them picking up lower level jobs, often retail jobs or some type of support role. And what ultimately happens is that they begin to believe that's all they're capable of, even though they might have foundational academic preparation and even maybe some experience that says otherwise. So it is a bit of a snowball effect from this frequent moving. And we like to say that military spouses they have a lot of the burden, obviously not the same agency kind of that the military veteran or the military service member has, but they are sacrificing time with family, they're sacrificing their careers, they make choices in service of their service member, but they don't get any of the perks like the high five in the airport and thank you for your service kind of a thing. So we like to really call out their service as well.
Well, and from the personal side of what is happening for them, they're used to being in the support role. And so when they're thinking about themselves, when they're thinking about their career or what is next for me, oftentimes they are challenged just by putting themselves first, you
Right.
know, putting themselves on, you know, on the front burner.
We had one student say, I've spent the last 28 years of my life in the passenger seat, and I'm finally feeling like I can be in the driver's seat,
Yeah.
which is a great metaphor.
Which is massive. I mean, that is a huge shift to be making. And you're right. I mean, a lot of times these are people, largely women, who have given up or put their part of their lives on hold to support not only the family but also the dream of their service member. So I
Mhm.
think it is really important that we highlight that, like, it's some of these challenges are yes, they're agreed to, but that doesn't make them any less tricky to try and navigate
And
around
like
once you
they're
come to.
agreed to at 25 years old or whenever they get married.
Exactly.
So
Yeah.
there's a long arc there. Some of them serve for 30 years. It's a long time to be underemployed, unemployed, and feel like you can't pursue your career. What we do see is a lot of those who know early on that they're, going to have a life partner who's a service member will often take more portable jobs as teachers, often,
Nurses.
and nurses or physical therapists. But what happens is mid-career and sometimes even earlier, they'll come in and say, I never really wanted to do this. This was not my calling. I just knew this was something I could do and be able to move as frequently as I planned, or as I expected I would be.
Yep, exactly. Very, very, very practical a lot of the times, but
Mhm.
also,
Not
practicality and
every time.
pragmatism.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it's not something you should have to do forever.
Yeah.
All right, based on some of these challenges, how realistic do you think it is that a military spouse can have a fulfilling and sustainable career?
Well, it's definitely more difficult. I mean, we don't sugarcoat it. There are definite challenges with that kind of a marriage. So to the earlier answer, if you pick that kind of portable career, it's very easily achievable
Right.
because you can always get a job, even sometimes overseas, if you have that unique kind of specific skill set. And if you don't, then there are some things that you have to consider. Can you do your work somewhat remotely? Can you use technology, maybe not to be a fully remote employee, but a partially remote, so that if you move a lot domestically, at least you can maybe work a hybrid role. Well, maybe you just go into the office even just twice a month. In many companies that have even return to work policies now will make exceptions for military spouses. We just had someone join AWS, Amazon's cloud company, and has that provision into her employment contract. So that's great. So choosing careers that have some ability to be done remotely, choosing careers that are portable. But for those who are choosing the career that is none of those things, there is opportunity. It just requires a little bit more work. It requires convincing an employer that you're worth investing in, even though you can't be there on site. It might mean taking a role that's a little less of a leadership role than what you want until you can be available on the terms that the employer has, maybe when when you stop moving. So yes, we have seen people achieve employment in tech, in law, in trying to think the non-education, non-clinical, in operations,
Yeah.
in accounting and finance. So it is doable. It just takes a little bit more of a concerted approach.
And often they're calibrating for this at the end of their service members' time in the service. So when they're getting towards retirement, that's where they're really calibrating for this and taking the time to really think about where do they want to go with their career, what direction do they want to go in. And it is something that we see with the students that we have where they for the first time are doing that, are actually thinking about what do I actually see as fulfilling to me? What do I get a drive out of if I'm doing that type of work? And so that's usually where they're calibrating because oftentimes it's like they're passing the torch.
And it's not just retirement. I mean, some people separate after 5 years, so some of them
Right.
are very young. And we talk often about kind of a long term, short term. So maybe your spouse is going to separate in 5 years and you have a goal in 5 years. What can you do in those ensuing for those intermediate 5 years to put yourself in the best position?
Right.
So, for example, a lot of military spouses volunteer quite a bit in their children's schools, in their places of worship, on their military installation. What we'll teach them is strategic volunteerism. Think about the things that are going to develop your skill set to help you achieve that role that you want in 5 years. So if you know you want to be in a financial role, maybe you're taking treasurer volunteer positions. Maybe you're doing some volunteer work on the installation, helping people manage their finances. But maybe you're not doing, you know, recess duty or teaching Sunday school. Even those might be fulfilling. But if you have a limited amount of time, placing your effort in a place that's going to develop those skills that you need for that, whatever that 5-year goal is.
Yeah, no, I'm loving all of this. Now as let's assume that we're talking to current military spouses.
Yep.
What are some of the things that milspos do in support of their service members, and that can be flexible, or not flexible, it can be valuable to the workplace? Because like you said, it's very easy to get that kind of myopic, well, I've just stayed home for the last, 7, 12, 15 years. That's not really all these people are doing, really. So when you are talking to these military spouses, what are some of the valuable skills that they're overlooking?
I think there's soft and hard skills that they are acquiring. I think I was just talking to someone last night. You want to hire a military spouse. I mean, there's no one that is more resourceful, agile, can think and change on a dime. Those softer skills are so important in the workplace, and they're so valuable in the workplace. And so you don't want to underestimate the soft skills that you're acquiring from being someone who's done PCS 21 times all over the world, moved continents, and large families. So all of that resilience it takes to actually be in the role of military spouse, do not underestimate the value of those soft skills that you bring to the workplace. So you can talk about that.
Often, to your point, Meg, they don't really even know what they've done because so much of it is just expected. And remember, they're often in communities of other military spouses, so it doesn't seem that unusual. We recommend that people sit with others and kind of write down all the stuff that they do. We have them do this in our programs, write everything down. Not everything will ever be discussed with an employer, but take a look at all the things that you've done, because so many things are just assumed to be done.
Yeah.
So the moves, I mean, yes, to Kelly's point, often they are asked to move with 2 weeks notice to a place they can't find on a map, and they get it done. And that's just not moving 2 people, it's moving a household with pets and maybe elderly parents and all of their belongings, and getting it done very nimbly. So that kind of resilience and that high level agility is very valuable. They often have defined roles on the installation too. So if you're, for example, if you're married to a senior officer, there are things that you just take for granted, but you are hosting events with dignitaries. You are often speaking another language. If you're on a foreign installation, you are providing support. So if your spouse's entire company gets deployed, you are then kind of the de facto leader of the people left behind. So you're providing support, education, bereavement support sometimes, in the worst cases, family support, supplemental access to resources, childcare, all kinds of things in a true leadership capacity. If you are married to a more junior officer, you might be volunteering as an ombudsman. You might be volunteering on like a care committee. If you have an officer spouse, you might be a key spouse, which is kind of like the equivalent of the leader on the base for the family, the spouses and families. And as I said earlier, a lot of them are taking leadership roles in their communities, in their schools, and in their places of worship.
A long time ago, they taught us the term voluntold.
Yeah.
And so don't underestimate those voluntold roles that you are taking on as a military spouse. And actually, Susan said this kind of quickly, but the activity that we have our students do is, this is a great thing for the audience to do, for you to sit down with another military spouse, and the two of you just list out everything that you've ever done, in terms of whether you got paid for it. Maybe it was like a smaller level position that you held on a base, or if it was unpaid, and it was something that you were voluntold to do. But writing that out and just having that other person to, work with can be really helpful, because then that's giving it's actually putting in front of you, wow, I have a body of work here. But then the next step is really important too, and that's being able to connect the dots.
Yeah.
Actual.
So I think, as I said earlier, you don't present everything to a potential employee. You really look at what themes here are consistent with the kind of work that I want to do. But, and Kelly hinted at this, we believe deeply that work is work, whether it's paid or unpaid. So we tell our military
Mhm.
spouses, we're not saying, like, we're working on resumes right now in our program, and I see people with this was volunteer, this was part-time, this was,
No,
nobody needs to know.
we're not
It's work.
labeling
We're
it.
focusing on the content of the work. And we both know, although we're not military, we both took caregiving breaks. So it's very similar where you're trying to translate work that you've done that wasn't paid. When you call out in a conversation or on a resume that it wasn't paid, it immediately diminishes the value of that work in the reader's eyes. So don't do that. Just talk about the work that you did. And we focus on that a lot. And I think the first step is getting the military spouse to even give herself or himself permission
Yes.
to count that as work.
Yeah, you have to see it and believe it first in order for anyone else to see and believe that there is value in that work that you have done. And you know, we actually on our YouTube channel, I think we actually have a video specifically on
we
military
definitely do.
spouses on how to translate that volunteer work into professional.
We call it workplace currency. Yeah.
Yeah.
I actually wanted to talk about this next. If you are talking to somebody who is unsure of how to translate that, what do you say to them? Where do you start?
So start by looking at the work that you did. So not, not the context, because context is where we get tripped up. So talking about, let's say some of the examples we gave, like treasurer of a school PTO. I was doing reconciliations. I set up a strike management system. I grew our donor funds, 40%. And general accounting did the ledger, maybe put it in QuickBooks. Focusing on the tasks, not I was treasurer for the school and I did the finances for the book sale and I helped with the bake drive. Those things don't translate well, but focusing on the actual work that's done. And as Kelly mentioned, it is easier to do with a partner. We tend to speak less of the work that we've done
Right.
and apply more value to the work others have done. So speaking with people and doing it kind of as a partner exercise is really helpful.
And if you notice what Susan did, she actually owned it with professional language. She didn't call it, Tooten Hills Elementary School is, where I was working or volunteering. It's like you're giving it professional language. So it might be, I work for the Canton Public Schools. I worked for the Canton Public Schools.
As opposed to, I worked at this elementary school. But the other piece of it is focusing a lot, as I said, focusing less on the context and more on the content. What did I do? And applying the same, you present it the same way you present any work. This is what I did. These are the tools that I use. So any technology you've used, these are my results. Now, granted, if I'm working at a Fortune 50 tech company and I land a big deal that's worth $100 million, that has a lot more cachet than I'm the treasurer and we brought in, $10,000. So you may not focus on the dollar amount, but to sound more professional, you might talk about growth. So instead, last year you brought in 8,000 and this year you brought in 10. Well, guess what? We grew our revenues 25%. Instead of saying, we raised $10,000. So thinking about your audience always and providing good content and good metrics when you can, not forcing it.
Right.
Another thing we didn't touch on is a lot of our students homeschool.
Yeah.
And a lot of them are uncomfortable owning that because it does sometimes have negative connotations. And what we say is own that. There's a very good case for homeschooling when you're in the military, if you're moving every 18 months,
Right.
to make sure that your children have some continuity. So talking about the things that you've done, very often our homeschoolers have not only schooled their own children, but they're working in small learning groups. They are helping other homeschoolers. They're developing curriculum. Many of them are advocating at state capitals to make sure that their work is valued and that their children get credit for it. So again, not thinking about I'm sitting at the kitchen table reading Charlotte's Web with my kids.
Right.
It's more developed curriculum, talking about the subject matter, talking about the groups and the advocacy and looking at it, slightly zooming out, looking at it in the slightly bigger picture. But again, focusing on, we wouldn't say, I homeschooled my teacher. You call yourself an educator and you talk about what you educated.
Yeah. I love all of this. Okay. All right. So once we've got, this idea that you have skills, you have workplace currency that you can draw on. If there are military spouses who need career guidance, what sort of resources? Like, we talked earlier and you said a lot of times people commit to this lifestyle when they're fairly young.
Yeah.
may or may not have an education or any idea of what they want to pursue when that time comes.
Yeah.
So what kind of resources are out there if they need some sort of guidance for a career that they might never have really launched?
There are so many.
So
Let's
it's
just
almost
start, like,
overwhelming.
at the beginning, though. Let's talk, because you mentioned for those, because we do get some spouses that marry someone who enlisted at 18.
Right.
So they haven't even had a chance to go to college. So there are financial resources through the government. We've had many students, families get college tuition credits.
Yeah.
And if your spouse isn't using it, you can use it.
Right.
Or maybe you save some for your kids and use half of it yourself.
Right.
There are a lot of accreditation programs that are free. So you and I would have to pay for a Google project management certificate, but a military spouse would not. So just really looking at your local installation, wherever you're posted, talking to the Career Resource Center there and just finding out what classes can I get for free.
Right.
Really, here's an easy one: LinkedIn Learning, which is only available with premium subscribers, which is like what, $50 a month.
Right.
It's free for 1 year to military spouses. There's a ton of education there.
Yeah.
So at that entry level, a lot of opportunity.
Right. And then there's so many organizations that are out there. We have ones that we recommend. We actually work specifically with 4Block. They are a military veteran career readiness program, but they have a military spouse.
Well, let's talk about how that came up, because
Yeah.
it's really interesting.
Yeah.
They had interviewed me on a podcast about veteran transition, because I, in my private coaching, had worked with some veterans. And when we walked out of the recording studio, I looked at the executive director of 4Block and I said, we just spent a whole hour together. We didn't even talk about the challenges military spouses face. So he said, well, let's talk about it. We did. And then I came home and I said to Kelly, we could pitch a military spouse course to these people, because our career relaunch course for caregivers who've got some career breaks or some career stalls and are looking to relaunch, a lot of that is the same. So we worked with them. And what made 4Block believe in funding our program was that Mike, around the time that I spoke with him, had a conversation with a military spouse, and he was kind of floating this idea. And she said, don't just and me.
Right. Which meant don't just take what you do for the veterans and
Make it pink and tell it it's a military spouse
right,
program.
Exactly.
So our program is very unique in that we are looking at the military spouse. We're giving them time and space to really think about who they are, what they bring to the table, and that's sort of their brand. And then this is a big spot for our male spouses. It's really thinking about what direction do you want to go in? What audience are you speaking to? What work do you want to be doing?
Not just what work did you study in college,
Exactly.
or did you do before, or did mom and dad say you should do, or someone else says you should do, but we
Yeah.
really give them space to think big.
Right.
Because most military spouses will come into the program thinking, I'm going to just do this because I know I can do this and I just want to get a job.
Right.
But by the time they've graduated from our program, they have expanded that and they've put a plan in together to reach hopefully a more bold goal,
Right.
and a goal that will set them up for their own financial success, which is important in a time and age where most families are dual working spouses.
And so then it's really about creating the tools. It's connecting the dots. So writing your own resume, getting a LinkedIn profile that matches that, and then really thinking about the networking plan and how do I interview and all of those things. So we kind of take you from the very beginnings on, but then we love the organization ACP.
It's American Corporate Partners is the ACP.
Right. They have a mentor program. Many of our male spouses actually will come in and have already started a relationship with a mentor. We like them to kind of do it on the back end. And so we do a little bit of a pass off with ACP because that's another great opportunity. And then the other one is hiring our heroes that
they have a fellowship program where you can actually be partnered with an employer and get some work, hands-on work. The key is for any of the programs that for ACP, for hiring our heroes, and there are Veterati, there are a few others. It's best to go in with a very clear idea of who you are and what you want to do, which is why Kelly said we prefer to have them go through a program like ours. So they're very clear, because one of the challenges of military spouse, because they are extremely good support players. That's what they've always done. They're very good at logistics. They're very good at administrative tasks. They're very good in supporting the top dog, right? But a lot of them are top dogs themselves, so they just haven't had a chance to be that person. Unfortunately, there's an assumption in the world of work that if you're a military spouse, you're a really good administrator. you're a really good number 2 person.
Right.
We don't want our spouses to be the number 2 person unless that's what they want to
Right.
be.
And they may want that.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, they have big full lives, and that might be a conscious decision, but we want
Right.
them making that conscious
Mhm.
decision. We want it
Agreed, yeah.
Yeah.
You don't want it to be
So-
you don't want it to just be assumed. You want people to
Right.
have the opportunity as opposed to just not getting a choice. So I like that a lot. Yeah.
But another resource, Meg, that's not as well known, or I guess it's not defined, is that most companies, most Fortune 500 companies have a military preference
Right.
in their
Mhm.
hiring strategy. In many cases, they have an on-site recruiter who is just
Right.
hiring for military. And by military, we mean military service member, military spouse, even military family member for young adults entering the workforce. And that is
Mhm.
something that has survived DEI because it is not gender or race related, it is just service related. So those programs are not hiding in the bushes anymore like some of the others. They are front and center. So there is that resource available. And one of the things we talk to our students about is making sure you lead with it. So it used to be the common instruction was don't ever tell anyone you're military because you'll never get a job. We flip that on
Right.
its head and we tell our students lead with it.
Yeah.
I mean, one of the first words out of your mouth should be military spouse, not the first, but in that first paragraph, we want people to know that they're serving as well.
Well, and I was talking with Rob earlier, and it sounds like Power to Fly has a lot of these organizations, especially over these next few days, that are a really good source for what Susan's talking about. They have that relationship, and they are looking to
Mhm.
hire military.
But
spouses.
also just because there is a military spouse preference program within the recruiting department doesn't mean that the line managers get it. So we
Mhm.
tell our students to tell their story, to look a hiring manager in the eye and say, well, you'll see from my resume, there are a lot of different jobs here.
Yeah.
And that's because for 15 years, I was a military spouse and we moved, as Kelly mentioned earlier, to 3 continents, sometimes on very short notice. I've had to reinvent myself and resettle my family 12 times. And that has made my career traction. It's compromised my career traction. So,
Yeah.
but let me just explain that during this time, I was always working. I
Right.
was doing X, Y, and Z. And at this point in my career, because my spouse is either stationed somewhere permanently or he's separated from the military or whatever it is, now I'm very excited to get back and to really invest in one company, in one organization, so I can bring not only the skills through my schooling and my professional work, but also my skills that I've developed as a military spouse, as a leader on my installation. And I'm really excited to talk to you about it today, Meg, to see if we're a good fit. Like really just putting it
Yeah.
out there with confidence, yeah, and leading with it and
I
not
like it.
apologizing.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course. Actually, something I wanted to touch on there. What
Yeah.
advice do you have for milspos who feel self-conscious about like employment gaps or frequent relocations when telling their career story? Is this something that y'all have to work on kind of getting over that mindset?
Yeah, I mean, if they can take, we actually, you can probably find it somewhere, like a 4 steps on how to tell your military career story. I kind of just did it
We
in
do
my last
at
example.
our YouTube. If you watch
Yeah,
that on the
it's on
YouTube,
there.
it actually it walks you
It
through
kind of
that.
gives them a template to follow, but it's
Right.
basically what I just did, like owning it. Like, this
Mhm.
is why
Yeah.
my resume looks like this. This is my foundation. This is my experience. This is what I've done as a military spouse. And to even say something like, I have served right alongside my military service member, just by virtue of the fact that I have a master's degree and I never was really able to fully use it.
Mhm.
And now I'm ready to. It's okay to make the civilian hiring manager almost feel a little guilty, like, gosh,
Yeah.
man, this person's really sacrificed for me too. It's educating them because they don't always understand it. But the first step is they have to believe it.
Yeah.
So they have to practice it because I'll tell you, as a hiring manager, if you come in and you're saying something that sounds good, but I don't feel your heart in it, I'm not buying it.
Well, and I
Mhm.
think the other thing that we see is that, the action. So actually the act of writing your resume and connecting those dots, that is growing the confidence that you're talking about, Meg. It's actually putting the story together and feeling really good about that story, feeling like that story is something I could tell and I'll feel authentic when I'm telling it. It's not, foo-foo, it's not pretend, it's not like I just made this up. So going through and writing your resume, and this is something, this is a trap that most spouses fall into. There are so many career help supports for mill spouses out there, and they do a lot of writing of the resumes. And I see it.
They're
in our
not good.
course.
Let's just
Yeah.
call it what it is.
But I see right now so clearly in our course, because our students are writing their resumes, their confidence is growing every single coaching call right now. Every single coaching call, because they're believing it. They're actually
Mhm.
physically writing their story and they're believing it. So do not underestimate. If you are someone out there that is fearful of writing your own resume and connecting those dots and doing that, and you're thinking, I don't want to write my resume, I hate doing that, do it, because that is your opportunity to write your story. And you have a great story to tell.
And
So-
do it with some supports. Obviously, people in our program have tons of supports. I mean, we're with them twice a week. But for people who don't have that access or aren't maybe available to take our program, because it is free for military spouses, it's underwritten by some corporate sponsors. We have lots of information on our YouTube channel about writing a resume when you don't have the
Right.
traditional conventional story to tell. So
Love it.
yeah, so they
All
can
right.
yeah.
We are almost at the end of time today, but I just want to say a massive thank you to both of you for obviously sharing your time and your expertise with us. If people want to learn more, they want to connect with you, what information do they need?
So they can go to our website, which is www.preparetolaunchu.com, and there's a military spouse tab there. It'll take them to the 4-block program where they can learn about our information sessions. They can learn about the application process.
Yeah.
And we offer it 3 times a year. Again, it is free to military spouses, both those whose spouses are active or have recently separated within a year.
Yeah.
And
Enrollment's open
also
right now, too.
and also all Gold Star spouses as well.
Yes.
One thing I would like to just end with is that when did we start this? Like 2007?
7 years ago.
Okay, so 7 years ago, we started this. When we started this and we were teaching it, we had great confidence that it would be successful, that our students would go out and be able to land jobs even when they have really unconventional resumes, tons of different underachieving jobs and whatever, kind of a mishmash. But now we know it because we've been doing it for 7 years. So we see our students landing jobs, often jobs they never thought were within their reach.
We hear that. We literally just got
Yeah.
an inbox on LinkedIn
Yeah.
from one of our students
Yeah.
saying specifically that I never thought that this would be possible.
And this particular one, if you're thinking of Emily,
Yeah.
this was a data science role. So not an easy role to get
Right.
in any
Yeah.
circumstance, but certainly much more difficult to get when you've been moving around a lot and don't have a lot of traction. So
So,
yeah, just wanted to, because I think they need to know, anybody who's watching
It's
this needs to
possible.
know that it does work and it is possible.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Susan and Kelly, thank you so much. I sincerely hope we get to do this again soon. I absolutely have loved this discussion today. So thank you very much for that.
Thanks for having
Thanks,
us, Meg and
thanks,
team.
Meg. Yep.